Back up. Sorry. Check 1, 2, 3, 4. Check. Back up. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Dan, I'm good if you're good.
'Cause I'm in the stars tonight. So watch me bring the fire, set the night light. Shoes on, get up in the morning, cup of milk, let's rock and roll. Kink out, get the drum, rolling on like a rolling stone. Sing song when I'm walking home, jump up to the top of the brown. Ding dong, call me on my phone, nice tea and I'll get my ping pong. This is getting heavy, can't hear the bass, boom, I'm ready. Life's sweet as honey, yeah, this beach chain like money. This go all alone, I'm into that, I'm good to go, I'm down, you know I go. Hey, so let's go. 'Cause I'm in the stars tonight, so watch me bring the fire, set the night light. Hey, shining through the city with a little funky soul. So I'ma light it up like dynamite. Whoa, bring a friend, join the crowd, whoever wanna come along. Word up, talk, just move right up the wall. Day night, sky's the light, so we dance to the break of dawn. Ladies and gentlemen, I got the medicine, so you should keep your eyes on the ball. This is getting heavy, can you hear the bass? Boom, I'm ready. Ladies, students, honey, yeah, this bitch chain like money. And this go all alone, I'm into that, I'm good to go, I'm down, you know I go. And let's go. 'Cause I'm in the stars tonight, so watch me bring the fire, set the night light. Hey, shining through the city with a little funky soul. So I'ma light it up like dynamite. Whoa, da-na-na-na-na-na-na-na-na-na. Life is dynamite. Da-na-na-na-na-na-na-na-na-na. Life is dynamite. Shining through the city with a little funky soul. So I'ma light it up like dynamite. Whoa, da-na-na-na-na-na-na-na. Da-na-na-na-na-na-na. Da-na-na-na-na-na-na. Light it up with dynamite. Da-na-na-na-na-na-na. 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 Light it up with dynamite. 'Cause I'm in stars tonight, so watch me bring the fire, set the night alight. Shining through the city with a little fucking soul. So I'ma light it up like dynamite. This is so watch me bring the fire, set the night alight. Shining through the city with a little fucking soul. So I'ma light it up like dynamite. Baby, you can find me under the lights, diamonds under my eyes. Turn the rhythm up, don't you wanna just come along for the ride? Oh, my outfit's so tight, you can see my heartbeat tonight. I can take the heat, baby, best believe that's the moment I shine. 'Cause every romance shakes and it bends, don't give a damn. When the night's here, I don't do tears, baby, no chance. I could dance, I could dance, I could dance. Watch me dance, dance the night away. My heart could be burning, but you won't see it on my face. Watch me dance, dance the night away. I'll still keep the party running, I want it out of place. Lately, I've been moving close to the edge, still be looking my best. I stay on the beat, you can count on me, I ain't missing no steps. 'Cause every romance shakes and it bends, don't give a damn. When the night's here, I don't do tears, baby, no chance. I could dance, I could dance, I could dance. Watch me dance, dance the night away. My heart could be burning, but you won't see it on my face. Watch me dance, dance the night away. I'll still keep the party running, I want it out of place. When my but you won't see it on my face. Watch me dance the night away. I'll still keep the party running. I want hair out of place. When my heart breaks, when my world shakes, I don't play safe. Don't you know about me? I could dance, I could dance, I could dance, dance tonight.
This is that ice cold Michelle fight for that white gold. This one for them hood girls, them good girls, straight masterpieces. Styling, wildin', living it up in the city. Got Chuck's on with Saint Laurent. Gotta kiss myself, I'm so pretty. I'm too hot. Call the police and the fireman. I'm too hot. Make a dragon wanna retire, man. I'm too hot. Say my name, you know who I am. I'm too hot. And my band bought that money. Break it down. Girls hit you, hallelujah. Girls hit you, hallelujah. Girls hit you, hallelujah. 'Cause Uptown Funk don't give it to you. 'Cause Uptown Funk don't give it to you. 'Cause Uptown Funk don't give it to you. Saturday night and we in the spot. Don't believe me, just watch. 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 Hey, 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 oh! Stop. Wait a minute. Fill my cup, put some nigga in it. Take a sip, sign the check. Julio, get the stretch. Right to Harlem, Hollywood, Jackson, Mississippi. If we show up, we gon' show.
Hi, I'm Lauren,
Hi, I'm Reese.
and we go to Marietta City Schools,
I go to Westside.
and I go to MCA. Our dad's Grant.
He's the superintendent.
Okay, we know that, and they know that. But something embarrassing about him is,
He calls himself Coolio.
and he always loses his wallet. But anyways, he's going to be starting in a few minutes here, so while you're waiting, we need you guys to scoot to the middle.
Call the police and the fireman. I'm too hot. Make a dragon wanna retire, man. I'm too hot. Trick, say my name, you know who I am. I'm too hot. And my band bought that money. Break it down. Girls hit you, hallelujah. Girls hit you, hallelujah. Girls hit you, hallelujah. 'Cause Uptown Funk don't give it to you. 'Cause Uptown Funk don't give it to you. 'Cause Uptown Funk don't give it to you. Saturday night and we in the spot. Don't believe me, just watch. 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 Don't
take a seat. Right over there, sat on the stairs, stay or leave. The cabinets are bare, and I'm unaware of just how we got into this mess. Got so aggressive. I know we meant all good intentions. So pull me closer. Why don't you pull me close? Why don't you come on over? I can't just let you go. Oh, baby, why don't you just meet me in the middle? I'm losing my mind just a little. So why don't you just meet me in the middle? In the middle. Baby, why don't you just meet me in the middle? I'm losing my mind just a little. So why don't you just meet me in the middle? In the middle. Oh, take a step back for a minute into the kitchen. Floors are wet and taps are still running, dishes are broken. How did we get into this mess? Got so aggressive. I know we meant all good intentions. So pull me closer. Why don't you pull me close? Why don't you come on over? I can't just let you go. Oh, baby, why don't you just meet me in the middle? I'm losing my mind just a little.
Well, good morning. There you go. Good morning, Marietta. How you doing? Oh, I missed you so much. So listen, if you would, if there are open seats in the middle, we've got a handful of people standing up. If you could slide in. I know you are reserving seats, but we are certainly working to make sure that everyone here is comfortable. And we've got some seats up in front. We would appreciate it greatly. Well, I missed you. How was your summer? Was it good? So, I know that you had a wonderful summer, or at least I hope that was the case. I will tell you that I am so grateful for this opportunity for us to be together. Like, I missed you so much. The buildings are not the same. Certainly, the energy in this district is not the same. So I am honored to have you back and grateful for just a few minutes of your time this morning. And again, thank you for those of you that are coming in and finding seats. We appreciate it greatly. If you would, we would like to kick off appropriately this morning as we honor our country and certainly celebrate our very talented scholars. Would you join me in welcoming to the stage first our elementary honor chorus? Would you welcome? And while so many of you were enjoying your summer, and we'll talk about exactly what you did later, but while you enjoyed your summer, these young scholars and incredibly talented musicians were here practicing, so therefore they could be the first thing you see as you come back here for kickoff. Hey staff, you see any of your students? It's okay to wave. I'm going to give them that chance in just a moment. Ladies and gentlemen, would you please join me and stand and remain standing as we present our colors? Brought to you this morning by one of the most decorated ROTC programs in the entire Southeast. Ladies and gentlemen, the Marietta High School AJ ROTC.
So proudly we hailed at the twilight.
And as we continue to pay tribute to the many, and thank you, you may be seated, as we continue to pay tribute to the many Marietta City Schools staff who not only serve our country but serve our community. And I want to acknowledge one person in particular, familiar face to some in the room. Tawana Shelton not only served at Marietta High School, PLC, and MAPS on our Woods Wilkins campus, but she's been serving our country. She is a reservist who was called to active duty and has been on active duty since March of 2022. Communicated with her husband yesterday. She came back this week. And I know she is still technically on active duty. She comes back mid-month to be with our kids and be with each of us. But to all of those of you who've served our country in so many ways, and certainly to Tawana and her family for her being gone over the last year for more than a year, we will not only honor and thank all of you this morning, but we will welcome her back with open arms when she comes back to the Woods Wilkins campus in just a few short days. So thank you to all of our veterans. I want to take a moment and just acknowledge and say thank you. We had the opportunity outside for you to have Dunkin' Donuts coffee and Chick-fil-A biscuits, whatever your preference may have been. And I want to thank Credit Union of Georgia, Cadence Bank, Dunkin' Donuts. They were responsible for this morning, as well as our Marietta Schools Foundation. And for those who are familiar, many of you in this room have leaned on our Schools Foundation. They have been serving our schools, supporting our staff, really working to develop our alumni base for the last 40 years, and something that is well known to our high school staff, maybe not as well known to everyone else in the room. They have given over $850,000 in scholarships to graduating seniors from Marietta High School. So to Joe Kinsel, to Sam Story, to everyone who leads the Marietta Schools Foundation, not just thank you for this morning, and certainly to Cadence Bank and Dunkin' Donuts and Credit Union of Georgia. Thanks for being great partners, but I would say in particular over 40 years, changing outcomes for children. So thank you so very much. So I had the privilege this past year of being in and out of your classrooms. And listen, we're going to talk this morning about where we've been and where we're going. We're going to talk this morning about a common vision. We're going to talk about this morning about being a part of something that's bigger than yourself. But I also want to take a moment just to laugh and reflect on this past year. Because truth be told, as I walked in and out of your schools and your classrooms, and I watched you laugh and love and teach and inspire, there were glimpses of magic that selfishly I get to enjoy as your superintendent. But because sometimes you're in a classroom or a building, you don't see that across the entire district. Could I share with you just a moment of a glimpse of what I got to see last year? Let's look backwards for a moment. Watch this.
The best. You can be the King Kong banging on your chest.
You can beat the world, you can beat the war. You can talk the guy, go banging on his door.
You can throw your hands up, you can beat the clock.
Yeah.
You can move a mountain, you can break rocks.
You can be a master, don't wait for luck. Dedicate yourself and you gon' find yourself.
Standing in the Hall of Fame. You can walk straight through hell with a smile.
You can be the hero, you can get the gold. Breaking over records, if I never could be broke.
Yeah, do it for your people, do it for your pride. You ain't ever gonna know if you never even try.
Do it for your country, do it for your name. Cause there's gonna be a day when you're
standing in the Hall of Fame. And the world's gonna know your name.
politicians, be preachers. Be believers, be leaders, be astronauts, be champions, be truth seekers. Be students, be teachers, be politicians, be preachers. Be believers, be leaders, be astronauts, be champions. Standing in the Hall of Fame. And the world's gonna know your name. 'Cause you burn with the brightest flame. And the world's gonna know your name. You're never gonna walk to the Hall of Fame. Be a champion, you can be the best. You can be a champion, banging on your chest. You can be a champion, you can beat the wall. You can be a champion, banging on the wall. You can be a champion, you can beat the clock. You can be a champion, you can break rocks. You can be a champion, don't walk the luck. Dedicated champion, life is standing in the Hall of Fame.
Like that was you and that was them and all the learning and all the love. And I think it's important as we take a moment together here at Kickoff to look backwards. And I think if you're going to understand our time together this morning, you've got to understand the next 5 or 6 minutes. You see, as we look backwards, not just over last year in the Hall of Fame video and the magic that you created, but as we look backwards, we actually have a conversation over the last 2 years. A conversation that goes from our youngest learners all the way up to high school. It's a conversation about not just helping kids be on grade level, but helping kids reach their fullest potential. And here's what I want everyone in this room to understand as we think about something that is bigger than yourself. And that is to help our kids reach their fullest potential, regardless of whether we're welcoming them at the Emily Lembeck Early Learning Center or we're bringing them all the way up through to a graduation stage and whatever lies beyond in career or college. What we know, both in our community, in our schools, but what we know across the country, is that literacy matters. And I know well, listen, I recall being a high school special ed teacher. I remember saying to myself, if they would just fix the problem before they got to me, I could do my job as a high school teacher. High school teachers, have you ever said that? Amen? Careful. You're outnumbered this morning. But here's why it matters. And this is where this is a conversation from 4-year-old pre-K to high school PE. The conversation matters because if we can get literacy right, imagine what else we can change for a child to reach their fullest potential. And I'm not asking for middle and high school teachers to be reading experts. I'm telling them to have their classrooms be literature rich, to encourage kids to write and to read. But what I am saying is that 3rd grade reading is a critical lever for lifetime success. If you agree, say amen. Amen. Then we're on the same page. Let me go one step further. Imagine for a moment if we can address helping every kid read on grade level by 3rd grade, we can change outcomes for an entire trajectory for a child. You know, like I do. Elementary, middle, and high school teachers, it matters not. Say amen if you've seen this in your classroom. How many times have you seen a child unable to read and as a result they miss school? Amen? How many times have you seen a child not able to read and as a result it shows in their behavior and their disruption and their disengagement from class? Amen? Amen? Is that an elementary problem? No. Do we see it just in middle and high? It's not exclusive to elementary. We see it across pre-K through 12th grade. And the idea is, and just to remind you of the obvious that you live every single day, if we can address literacy in our classrooms, and specifically at 3rd grade, when we are able to help kids read, and I'll say 2 parts. One, on grade level, as just a basic expectation, I will show you a child who has better attendance, better grades, a better shot at graduation, a better opportunity for any post-secondary training, whatever that might be, and ultimately greater life outcomes. Amen? And it's not just about, like, let's have the lowest standard possible. It's actually about how do we help kids reach their fullest potential? Because to be honest with you, whether it's your child or my child, I'm not okay with just on grade level. But we know when they're not on grade level, we have serious, serious problems that will plague us elementary, middle, and high school. Amen? So let's talk about it for a moment. And I want to take you into a conversation about if we're going to focus on literacy, what are we going to do differently, and what have we been doing differently, and what are the outcomes? Because if we can understand that collectively together, then we understand what we can do differently for children. Because quite honestly, and I want everyone in this room to hear this, if the first part of this is third grade literacy matters, and the second part of this is K-12 literacy matters, the last part of this is we are doing something that is bigger than ourselves. It is bigger than your classroom. I will argue it is bigger than your school, and it is absolutely bigger than Marietta. So walk with me for a moment, and I'm going to show you what is bigger than ourselves. So as we look for a moment at some data from this past year. Now listen, middle and elementary folks, I don't need you to get distracted by third grade numbers. At the end of the day, we're going to look at what's happening here that's bigger than ourselves. And this is, as we talk about mean scale score, third grade literacy for milestones this past year across all subgroups. I'll talk to you about those students where we see the largest achievement gaps in a moment. But for right now, let's just talk about all kids. Mean scale score, elementary, you know what that means in third grade. Middle and high school, think about it like an ACT or SAT, it's a score. The mean scale score. As we look at spring of 22 last year to spring of 23 this year, for all kids who took the third grade milestones, if you look at Metro Atlanta and you look across the state of Georgia at a mean scale score in third grade, why? Because we said third grade matters, right? And we said third grade has implications K-12, right? Third grade mean scale score, something bigger than yourself. If the Metro Atlanta school districts and the state of Georgia had a 4-point gain in mean scale score from last year to this past year, from 22 to 23, let me show you what you did. So I'm no math major, but I think that Marietta scored 5 times higher than Metro Atlanta in the state of Georgia on the mean scale score for third grade. How's my math? But let's go one step further. And again, something bigger than yourself and the book that you are writing and the story we are creating and the lives that we are changing. So I gave you mean scale score. Your whip in Metro Atlanta and your whip in the state of Georgia, 5 times greater. Folks, that's not luck, that's learning. So indulge me for a moment, because all of you said helping kids reach their fullest potential matters in third grade because it impacts my elementary, middle, and high school classroom. So let's look for a moment at where are kids not only on grade level but above grade level. I'm going to take you from mean scale score to proficient and distinguished. Let me help the group for a moment if you don't live in this space. And this is similar to end of course exams in middle school and high school. It's similar to end of grade, but you know there are 4 categories. Beginning learner, developing learner, proficient learner. So there's different categories, and distinguished learner. 4 categories. We start thinking about those that are beginning and developing as being more likely below grade level. When you get to proficient, we think on grade level, and we get to distinguished, they're certainly well above. Again, what did I say? We want kids to reach their fullest potential, not just be on grade level. So let's take a look at some numbers for a minute. Metro Atlanta. If we are looking at Metro Atlanta relative to the same third grade metric, looking at 22 to 23, Metro Atlanta over 1 year, 1 school year last year, had a gain of 2% in your proficient and your distinguished, your on grade level and your advanced. Fullest potential. You follow me? Something bigger than yourself. Let's look at the state of Georgia. State of Georgia was +3. 3% on grade level, your advanced reading, third grade. Something bigger than yourself. Look at Marietta. Can you imagine for a moment if we are outpacing 5 times Metro Atlanta? And again, depending on what math problem you want to use, from 2% to 12.8%, 6.5 times. But who's counting, right? You are doing something here in this room that not only changes our middle school and high school experience, but you are changing and you are writing a story and writing a book about what reading means in Marietta. And I'm going to talk to you more about that in a moment, but it's about what does reading mean in Marietta. But listen, to this point, I've talked to you about aggregate numbers. Let's be honest. How we serve students who otherwise fall through achievement and opportunity gaps is our moral and ethical responsibility as educators. Let's look at those numbers for a moment. If we pull up some numbers, and this is, again, Georgia milestones, 3rd grade. The numbers I gave you before were aggregate numbers for all kids. Let's do a deep dive for a second on proficient and distinguished. This first slide shows you, if we look at proficient readers in 3rd grade on grade level, distinguished readers above grade level, and we look at 3rd grade, compare one year to the next year, 16% in our white subgroup, 16% in students with disabilities. Folks, can I frame this for you for a moment? I don't know what kind of happy dance you all do when the scores come in, but I'll tell you what happens in my office. We all huddle around Michael Haneke. Who knows Michael Haneke? It's the nerdiest guy you love, right? I mean, I love Michael Haneke. I tell Michael that sometimes I feel like I call him during test season and I talk to him more than I talk to my sweet wife, okay? But when we'll huddle around Michael's computer, and just to frame this for a minute, we know that anything that is 1 to 3% may or may not be statistically significant. Remember that from like that one class you took? But anything 3% above, we like going to a happy dance, and I've seen Michael Haneke dance. And anything 3% of above, we're like, we're crushing it. Anything 3% above, we're like, we got it. We're going in the right direction. There were some years where it went like -1, -2. We're like, well, that wasn't supposed to happen. But when it's, and let me say it again, I'll break it down real simple. 3% or above means it is statistically significant what you are doing. 16%, 16%, 15%, economically disadvantaged students on free and reduced lunch, 14%. Folks, that's not just statistically significant. That is life-changing for kids, and that is special, different, and better for the entire country. It is something bigger than yourself. But these aren't the only numbers I want to show you. Look at the next group of kids. So, white, black, multiracial. Let me show you the next one again. Whitney, go back just real quick. Next one, please. Students with disabilities. Let me take you backwards into MAP. Go backwards from MAP real quick, I'm sorry. So let me take you for a moment into MAP. My apologies. MAP, longitudinal reading growth. What I showed you before was students from 3rd grade from 2022 to 2023, 3rd grade. This here is MAP, NWEA. We all know what MAP is in our district. This takes a look at students, the same exact students from 2022 to 2023. And it is a decrease in the percent of students reading below grade level. So a moment ago, I was walking you through milestones. Now I'm taking you into MAP. Let me tell you what's interesting about milestones versus MAP. And I think it's a red flag, but we knew it was coming. Milestones, factors in reading and writing, yes? For 2 years, we've been doing writing. What did we know was coming year 3? For 2 years, we've been doing reading. What did we know was coming year 3? Writing. We knew as we did this 2-year rollout, which I'm going to talk to you a little bit more about in a second, regarding the science of reading and really getting into what does that mean, we knew the first 2 years, for those staff that have been with us on this journey, that was all about reading and the pedagogy of reading from birth to age 8. When we took the milestones, it looked specifically at reading and writing. However, MAP only looks at reading. And if you want to get a sense of the impact you've had over 2 years for reading, this is what I wanted to show you. Take a look at map longitudinal growth. We had 500 kids last year in second grade. We have 500 kids this past year, who were still enrolled in Marietta from second grade to third grade. The same kids in 1 year. Look at the growth we've had, or the decrease we've had in the number of kids reading below grade level. White 8%, black 17%, multiracial 21%. The next slide. Students with disabilities, 21, 23, 24, and 31. Let me say it back to you for a moment. If we believe that children reading below grade level matters, and we believe that children who traditionally fall through the cracks matter, which we all do, students with disabilities, economically disadvantaged, Hispanic, ELs, our other subgroups that were on the previous slide, folks, if 1 to 3% might matter, but 3% is statistically significant, we have 31% more of our English learner kids not reading below grade level. So I just want to frame this for you again. K-12 literacy matters. I'm going to talk to you in a moment about the work that's been happening over the last 2 years, but I wanted you to see first the numbers. The numbers, that's not luck, that's learning. Across every indicator that we have, milestones, map, we are not just having statistically significant gains, we have incredible gains that are changing outcomes for children and writing a story here in Marietta that is truly special, different, and better for the entire country. And I want to thank you all for all the work that you've done over the last 2 years. Again, we'll talk more about that. I also know so many of you have been involved in summer work. How many of you this summer were doing something, whether it's dyslexia training, OG training, other types of curriculum writing and support, a whole bunch of hands going up? And here's the thing, it's interesting because I know so many of you worked hard this summer, and I appreciate it. But I also know that your kids have a perception of what they think you were doing this summer. Your kids also have a perception of what makes you mad. So what's interesting is that not only have we had all this success, but I know there were times in your classrooms when things didn't go exactly as we wanted. And there were times when you got mad, right? Did anybody in here get mad? I know you did, because if you're not shaking your head, you're lying to me, because I asked many of your kids. And I said to them, hey, your teachers have done amazing work. They worked all year, they worked all summer, and yet we've had these incredible gains. I can't tell you about them because they're embargoed until the state of Georgia says I can release them. But they were like, what? But I said, hey, I know that things in your class were absolutely magical, but did your teacher ever get mad? And they were like, yeah. I said, well, I have a question. When did your teacher get mad, and what did they do? Are some of you scared right now? You should be.
Kids just don't listen. I'm not gonna name names. There's some kids that likes to be bad.
But we had some boys in our class. Definitely was not me.
Do we have to answer this?
They get frustrated when nobody's listening.
It's a lot. Having to worry about these kids. She goes like, hey! Angelo, you're going to the principal's office.
Just cut that out. Cut that one out.
One day it's just gonna be too much for me. She breathes, but like she breathes loud so we can hear it. We are learning, you better be listening. She closes the doors and goes, they're like,
They may like, ah. He smiles, but in kind of a sarcastic way, like how my mom does.
They stare into your soul until you stop talking.
Who had their kids on stage? Who was that? Anybody want to claim it? Anybody want to own it? Smart, don't. Oh, there's more. Don't worry. There's more. So listen, we walked through for a hot minute about these scores, and I wanted you just to see numbers. Did you have to understand them? No. Did you have to be immersed in them? Not necessarily. What you need to know is that there were gains that have happened over the last year that are writing a story here in Marietta that truly is special, different, and better. And I acknowledge that it's not always easy work, and I acknowledge that sometimes you get mad and you say, Angelo, I'm sending you to the principal's office, okay? But I want you to know that our board recognizes how hard you're working, and they want to make sure they're here to help you, always. And one of the things they did this past year, great, Paul. Now we've lost it. Come on, Paul. I'm telling you. So can I tell you about Paul Hill? Because you just did the same thing a bunch of 4-year-olds did. So, quick story. And again, when this work is hard, Paul and Barney are here to help you. Was really the point of all that. But just because you all jumped to your feet faster than anyone else who came on stage. So I'm going to tell you this quick story, and then I'm going to say Paul knows exactly what I'm about to say right now about that dog. But so quick story, and then I'll acknowledge Barney, and really in all seriousness how we're all here to love on you, especially when you get mad. When we go visit schools, especially the early learning center and some of the elementary classrooms, the first day of the school year, the mayor and I go around, and we'll go with the chief of police and the chief of the fire department, and we'll go into all the classrooms and say hello. And we walk in, and we're like, hey, I'm the superintendent. Hey, I'm the mayor. Hey, I'm the chief of police. And the first question we get? Do you know Officer Hill? The mayor and I are like chopped liver, right? Like, who cares? But do you know now that when Officer Hill shows up, you know what the kids ask now? Where's Barney? So my running joke is that this is the longest I've ever seen Barney stand, because usually Barney falls asleep. Anybody seen Barney fall asleep? All of you, yes. But I want to say this. So listen, obviously, the joke was, when you get mad, if you need somebody, call Barney. All right? But Paul, I want to say to you in front of all these people who love and adore you as much as I do, Paul worked for several years to bring this dog to Marietta. Bedtime. There he goes. Every time. Paul worked for several years to bring this dog to our schools. And obviously, it's for kids in crisis. This is not like a bomb-sniffing dog. This is not a drug-sniffing dog. This is a crisis response dog. I remember the very first day that Paul showed up, the Monday after spring break, and Barney was at a carpool line, and a kid was having a crisis getting out of the carpool line. Barney and the dog went into the counselor's office, sat on the couch, and away we went. And Barney's here for you when you're trying to figure out the science of reading. And Barney's here for our kids. And Paul, I just want to say to you in front of everyone, thanks for all the work that you've done. We appreciate it. Don't go anywhere, Barney. So, oh boy, I'm going to step this way. Wait. So, Paul had the genius idea of having a Barney stuffed doll. Also known as a chew toy, right? But, Paul, I'm going to leave this to you. I just want to see which section has the most spirit, because he's chucking 4 of them out in the audience. And the dog didn't even get up. But listen, I say, it's hard work. Sometimes you get mad. And when you do, we're all here to help you, especially Barney. If you want a stuffed animal, see Paul. Deal? All right. Paul, thanks, buddy. That dog. So just a quick side story. So this is positive, everything's good, but 6-7 months ago, our dog passed away, and the kids have just been kind of like, Dad, when can we get another dog? Mom, can we get another dog? And they've seen Barney. And I've tried to explain to them, Barney is like a really expensive trained animal from the day he was born. Anybody else have a black lab? Does it do that? No. Yeah, so don't you all send me emails about I got a free black lab. I came home. I was here yesterday planning for this event. I came home, and the girls met me in the driveway at like 5:30 last night. They said, Dad, do you know there are 2 stray kittens at MSGA? I said, I can fix that problem really fast. And here's the worst part about it. One is named Big, and the other one is named Blue. Can we get them? And I was like, no. No. If I go home to either a black lab or 2 cats, I will send an email to the staff, and you can adopt, okay? But let me take you for a moment. I started talking about there's a conversation around why literacy matters pre-K through 12. And I started framing for you the outcomes we have had over the last year because of the work that we've been doing over the last 2 years. And we're going to get inside that a little bit here in just a moment. But part of what this group here needs to understand community-wide is that this vision around literacy was set by our Board of Education. The board, make no mistake about it, the board sets the vision for the district. We just carry it out. We empower you to do your jobs. And this board came forward and said, hey, we must have profound, significant, immediate changes in literacy to change outcomes for kids. Folks, I will put your 20 mean scale score 5 times greater than others, 12.8, 31% for ELs. I'll put all those numbers as profound and significant. And I will say that what you have done and the vision they have set is very special and different and better, not just for Marietta, but across this country. And what I find so satisfying as superintendent, quite candidly, is that you can ask, and I'll bring you into my world just a minute. If you were to ask boards of education around the country, what are your priorities? They would probably rattle off all different kinds of things. You ask our Board of Education what their priority is, they're going to start with 2 things. 1, the safety of you and the kids, and the second, literacy. And to that end, I want to show you a night, January, this past year, when our board, based on their vision and based on their priorities, made a decision to invest $7 million into literacy, specifically across grades 1 through 5 in our elementary schools. And I'll talk more about that, but I want you to hear directly from them, why does literacy matter? Watch this.
I knew that it would be a game changer. If you can read very well, I mean, the sky's the limit to you, actually. The investment we made is about equity.
It felt significant to do this thing that impacted every single school in our district, every single kid. I remember talking to my husband that night and with tears in my eyes about this is it.
It takes buy-in from everyone that's involved to understand the importance of literacy, especially in the first, let's say, K through 3. And what happens beyond that is very dependent upon literacy.
It was a really special moment, and I'm super excited to see how our 40 reading specialists impact our students. To have a 10-to-1 student-teacher ratio is unheard of in public education.
We're ahead of what everyone else is doing. Now the state's trying to follow suit, and I'm really excited to see the results keep coming in a positive way. We're seeing that what we're doing with Science of Reading is working.
Shows the board's dedication to making literacy a priority and making sure that every kid in district has the tools they need to be able to read. We've got districts and folks who are asking us, what are you doing? How are you doing it?
We were asking our taxpayers to invest in the future. How can we send a kid out from our schools who cannot read? It's just not possible.
My name is Carrie Minervini.
Jeff DeJarnett.
A.B. Almy.
Angela Orange.
Irene Behrens.
Jaylene Hunter.
Jason Waters.
On the Marietta City Schools Board of Education.
Ladies and gentlemen, they are often behind the scenes on a lot of things, but in this case, they've been very, very, very out front on literacy. Would you join me in welcoming our Board of Education to the stage, please? You all are right up there with Paul Hill and Barney. I want you to know that. But I'd like to, obviously, you heard their heart, but I wanted to just acknowledge them by name. Thank you all, and to our board, thank you for your vision. But let me acknowledge our chairperson, Carrie Minervini. Jaylene Hunter. Serving for well over 22 years now, I believe. Irene Behrens. Angela Orange. A.B. Almy. Our Vice Chair, Jeff DeJarnett. And Jason Waters. Well, what we do in this district, and I would argue what we do across the country, is because of these people and their vision and their ability to empower you. So thank you all once again. And as they take a seat, I'd like to acknowledge another gentleman here who's very much a friend of Marietta, Cobb County, but the entire state of Georgia. Scott Johnson, would you please stand, Scott, so we can acknowledge you? I'm going to talk about this in a bit more, but Scott is leading across the entire state the Georgia Council on Literacy. And we have an opportunity in Marietta. Jaylene Hunter will be a part of that committee. It is a statewide committee to focus on best literacy practices in Georgia. Scott will be leading that work. Scott, thank you for being here this morning. Jaylene will also be serving that committee, and quite candidly for her, she has a seat at the table to bring forward all of your success that in turn serves as a model for the entire state of Georgia. So thus far, and again, just to walk through this journey with you, and I've told you in the past at kickoff, those moments at kickoff in the past were about hopefully pulling on your heart, pulling on your head, having you be in a space where you felt part of a family and felt valued. You felt like you were making a difference. This kickoff is just a little bit different. Because while, yes, I want you to feel all those things this morning, I also want to, as I continue to say, for you to understand that you are a part of something bigger than yourself. It's the outcomes you change for children. It's what we do differently pre-K through 12th grade that sets kids up for success. And it's what we do differently here in Marietta that becomes a model for the entire state and, quite candidly, the entire country. And I want to share with you just a bit about what that looks like as we move forward. So for the past 2 years, we have been involved in this work around reading. And it's interesting because a lot of times there's a lot of finger pointing that happens. And I want to ask you all to do something for me real quick. Where are the elementary folks? Where are the pre-K folks? Raise your hand. As if I were Paul Hill. Where are the pre-K folks? Thank you. Hey, elementary, where are the pre-K folks? Middle school, I know you're gifted. Pay attention. Hey, elementary, where are you? Thank you. Hey, middle school, where are the elementary folks? And just like a gifted kid, they don't really follow directions. They're like, woo! Like 3 people in the back pointed. Okay. Middle school, one more time. Where are the elementary folks? You're doing awesome. Hey, high school, where are you? High school, where are the middle school folks? They're in the back row. Does that surprise you? No. Y'all a hot mess. I got to unbutton my jacket for this one. All right. So here's where I want to take you. For the last 2 years, we've embarked on this work. I'm going to share with you and walk you through this work for a moment. Because thus far, hopefully what you've heard is literacy matters. Literacy cuts across our entire district. We've had some exceptional gains. Gains that will outpace 5 times the rest of the state. But we haven't actually shown you, unless you're a pre-K through 3rd grade teacher, you may not know the work. But I think you know the dynamic. And the dynamic is the blame game. And I want you to look at this for a minute. Here's what happens. Far too often in communities, but what's not happening here. The pre-K folks say, if only we had better early care. If only we need more pre-K programs, we need better prenatal care, and they're pointing fingers at the grades, at the ages below them. But then elementary points fingers. Elementary, where do sometimes, not in Marietta, where do people point fingers? Where are the pre-K folks sitting? Over there. And we said if they just got them ready in pre-K, we could do our job in elementary. Amen? Hey, middle school. But the problem is middle school, sometimes elementary sends us kids who can't read, right? Who do you blame? But work with me for a minute. Hey, high school. You ever had a kid in your class who can't read? Hey, high school. Oftentimes, who gets blamed? Because if they just would fix the problem in middle school, they'd come to us and be able to read, right? Who do we point fingers at? Ladies and gentlemen, there's this cycle of blame where we point fingers in other directions. Here's what I want you to understand about Marietta. We're done with this. And we have been for 2 years. The reality is that if we can build a model from birth to age 8 in 3rd grade, can you imagine how nobody's pointing fingers? The hands are going up in the air, quite honestly. So let's talk a little bit about what has that looked like in Marietta and how are we writing the book? Because we don't get anywhere by pointing somewhere else because those same kids who can't read are still sitting in our classrooms, regardless of where we're pointing the finger. So in Marietta, the commitment has been to focus on the science of reading. And what does that mean? Again, thus far, we acknowledge literacy matters. The data is compelling. The data is inspiring. The data changes the entire state and country and is bigger than ourselves. But what is the work? The work has been around the science of reading. The work has been around changing how we teach kids to read. Reading is not by chance. Reading is not by chance. It is by direct, systemic, and explicit instruction. Can I share with you just a moment a personal story? I mean, I remember, and maybe some of you too remember, I remember growing up seeing See, Spot, Run, trying to learn how to read when I was in elementary school. And it was a picture of a dog. Not just a dog, but a dog with spots. And I remember seeing a door, and it said D-O-O-R, door. And I was like, oh, that must be a door. And there were all these visual cues. That is pedagogy aligned to balanced reading and balanced literacy as opposed to what we believe here in Marietta around structured literacy, aligned to the most recent science. The reality is this: the science has been out there for decades. We just didn't want to shift. Anybody in this room ever read something called Sold a Story, a podcast? In your downtime, not for the next 180 days, but there's a fascinating podcast around this whole discussion that applies to every one of us in the room. But the belief is this: if we can go back to the most basic research on how kids learn how to read, we can leave behind the old practices that we may have been taught years ago, and we can do direct, explicit, and systematic instruction. And we can start this at birth, and I'll explain that in a moment, all the way through third grade. We get to third grade, as you saw by those numbers, and we have kids that are not only reading on grade level, but across every subgroup are showing gains. So fewer and fewer kids are reading below grade level, and more kids are reading at the highest levels. That, to me, is empowering. But I'll tell you, it's even been a journey for me. I remember the first time 2 years ago when I went to a training on science of reading, and I thought to myself, I'm a special education teacher, I've got a background in this, I'm fine. And I went into that room, and they challenged everything I had been taught at the University of Alabama so many years ago. Okay. I didn't say I was loyal to them, I just put the degree on the wall, right? But Roll Tide, yes. No. Listen, folks, I went to Northwestern. I can't talk about that now, okay, for anybody who knows what that's all about. If you don't put a Google on it. But here's what I remember doing, and I remember distinctly how this changed my home. So my girls, as you may have seen, are in 2nd and 5th grade. And I remember when Lauren, who's now in 5th grade, was learning to read, and my dad is a college professor for 40 years. He wanted the girls to be surrounded by books. He cared about reading. It was over and over and over again, like, when can we go to Barnes & Noble? What can we do? And I remember one trip to Barnes & Noble, long before I ever took the science of reading, that training, and I started to understand it better. I remember saying to Dad, well, hey, Dad, let's buy flashcards for sight words. Let's buy sight words, and I'm going to drill with the kids. I remember sitting there in our kitchen every morning, making Lauren breakfast, and I was drilling her on sight words. Pre-K 3 folks, you know what I did wrong? How many of you in here have used sight words with your own kids? Anybody? And I remember that day going home being like, I got to put the sight words away. Because I wasn't teaching my daughter, who was learning to read, how to decode. I was teaching her how to memorize. And for all of us in this room, you know this. When you read, if I were to put a passage in front of you right now, you haven't memorized every word. You decode and you can read quickly. That's not sight words. Those might be heart words, but they're not 100 sight words that you buy in Barnes & Noble. And I think that's the journey we've been on, is to acknowledge that the science and the pedagogy has shifted. It's actually been there all along. The reality is we were just in 100 different directions. And I want to talk to you for a moment about this partnership and this, what we call literacy and justice for all. And it is the most humbling opportunity we have to partner with the Atlanta Speech School, and I will call some friends up on stage in a minute, but to partner with the Atlanta Speech School and the Rollins Center for Language and Literacy. So therefore, we can side by side work with the nation's leading experts on language and literacy to make sure that in our classrooms, we are following the science and we are following the research. And what I want all of you to understand is that it's not just a pre-K through 3rd grade conversation. It actually starts at birth. Remember the finger pointing? We are partnering with WellStar and those providing prenatal services. We are partnering with every early learning programs throughout Marietta. We are partnering with others in our community to make sure that we build an ecosystem around literacy, so therefore we change outcomes not just in 3rd grade, but throughout 4th, 5th, middle, and high. That's the awesome opportunity that we have. And I want to take you next for a moment through, if you will, an exercise around understanding how this is different. And I'm going to call Nick up on stage. Come on, Mr. Philman, Dr. Philman. Good to see you. You look good.
That's the best picture you can find.
So, Nick has, how many of you have had Nick in your classroom somewhere at some time?
coach.
Nick has had the opportunity, obviously, to lead this work over the last 2 years. Not just an amazing teacher, but amazing facilitator. And I wanted Nick to be up on stage with me because we're going to walk you through, in a couple minutes, everybody, the pedagogy and the science behind this. But Nick's not the only one I wanted on stage, although he is, as you can see, an outstanding representative for literacy and justice for all. That is not the official uniform, Nick. That is, but I think you're wearing the same shirt, no? Okay, different one. It's different. Oh, got it, different glasses. I also wanted to call up 3 other really special ladies, and I'm going to ask Blaze and Jamie and Kelly to come up on stage from A.O. Burris. And I invited them very specifically. And sweet Jamie has a newborn, and she's here anyway. Thank you, Jamie. I told you that we had, as a district, a 20-point gain in the mean scale score. Remember that? I told you that was 5 times higher than the state and Metro Atlanta, right? These 3 ladies at A.O. Burris, between the 3 of them, they didn't have a 20-point mean scale score growth. That was the entire district. You ready for theirs? 47 points. Now, before you give them too much credit, I did want to put some other pictures up to introduce them. So when I got this picture, I was like, oh, that's adorable. I've got to introduce them to establish some stage cred that, yes, in fact, 47 points, highest in the entire district across any 3rd grade. But what is this? Does anybody know what this is from? So I'm embarrassed to say, when I got this picture, I was talking to some folks in our communications, but I was like, oh, Harry Potter. And they're like, no. But you look great. But I also appreciate how they dress on other days. So we'll be selling these afterwards, if anybody of you would like a sweater with your initial on it. But I called them forward for this reason, and I would ask you to immerse yourself with us for a moment. We're building this community-wide model to change outcomes for kids across our entire district so they reach their fullest reading potential. The success has been unprecedented. Not just by all of you, but certainly by them. And yet the reality is that some of us might not understand what does it mean to have a systemic, direct, and explicit approach to literacy and not see, spot, run, door, and grandpa's sight words. And I wanted them to come forward to walk you through just a couple quick exercises so you can see developmentally what is happening in kindergarten, 1st, and 2nd, and 3rd grade. And what does that look like as we take decoding, we take language comprehension. Those are different things, folks. That's not a door and spot. We take decoding and we take language comprehension and we create skilled readers. Because as the numbers I showed you earlier prove, you are creating skilled readers at a rate higher than anyone else in this state. Take it away, friends.
So as Grant said, we are very quickly going to walk you through just a few exercises that happen inside a classroom that is using the science of reading based on something called Scarborough's Rope. My elementary people, I know this is going to be a review for you, or you can think of it as a reminder of what you're going to do in about a week and a half with your kids. My secondary people, you may actually learn some brand new words as we walk you from the bottom of Scarborough's Rope all the way up to the top.
Okay, so we're going to start at the bottom with phonological awareness, which is just the ability to know and manipulate the sounds that letters make. The second one is decoding, which is the ability to break apart words and read them. And then the last one at the bottom is sight recognition, which is just any word a student knows by sight, and it is not based off of a list.
And then the kids need to understand literacy knowledge, which is just looking at a text, understanding the purpose. Is it a story? Is it a recipe? Is it nonfiction? Then we go into verbal reasoning, and that's where we get into those more complex skills like similes and metaphors and figurative language. And then we get into language structure, which is how the order of words make an impact on the meaning and our grammar.
And then we got vocabulary, which I'm sure y'all know, is the meaning of words. And then, of course, background knowledge, and that's just how we are able to attach meaning to what we're reading with our mental Velcro.
So the first activity we're going to do is related to phonological awareness and decoding. So we're going to walk you through some activities that you may see in the classroom that represent the different strands of the rope. The first one is phonological awareness, which is, again, just knowing and being able to manipulate the sounds that letters make. So we are going to tap out the word churn. Churn has 3 sounds. It has a digraph, an R-controlled vowel, and a consonant. And the different colored chips, the yellow chips represent consonants, and then the red chips represent vowels. So I'm going to ask you to stand for a brief activity. I heard that. So we encourage tactile responses in our littles to create a deeper mental connection. So we are going to tap out the word churn on our arm. You can hold your arm out. Please do not slap the person next to you. We are going to start with beginning sounds at our shoulder, medial sounds in our elbow, and then final sounds at our hand. And then when you are blending the word, you swipe your hand down your arm. So let's tap this out together. So we have I heard some of you say cha. We are going to cut that U off, and it's just ch. Let's do it again. Good job. Keep standing. The next one is decoding. Decoding is now matching those sounds to the letters. So we're going to do a different form of tapping where you're using your whole body. Again, beginning sounds, medial sounds, and end sounds. So let's tap out churn now that we have the letters. It's ch, churn. Good job.
Hey, good job. Nice little calisthenics first thing in the morning. So what Jamie showed us was the introductory level of decoding. However, have no fear. It does get more and more complicated as we go along. For instance, these 2 names right here. First off, I want to point out that you heard churn makes what sound? The CH makes what sound? Guess what? It also makes another sound. It can, Ooh, elementary people, pop quiz. It makes the k sound if it's a word from Greek origin. Good job, good job.
So, Dr. Philman, if I may bring a friend of ours on stage. You clapped for him earlier. Would you join me in welcoming Mr. Hunnicky? Mr. Hunnicky, you are no Barney the dog, but this district loves you, and don't we, folks? Let me say this. I'll say because I know you're standing, and they'll have you sit whenever they want you to, but stay standing. I've been in a lot of districts, both around here, and I've worked with a lot of districts around the country. I have never seen someone who helps make assessment data more relevant to teachers and classrooms. Amen? Thank you, Mr. Hunnicky.
Y'all can have a seat for a second. So everybody knows Mr. Hunnicky's first name, or at least you think you do. And most of you know me by Nick, but this is actually my full name. We talked about that CH right in the middle. You'll notice that our names have a similar spelling pattern in the middle, that ICH, which might make one think that they are pronounced the same. In fact, if you only learned words by sight, you would probably pronounce those names really, really similarly. However, there's some funky stuff going on inside those names. One funky thing happening is some of those syllables are closed syllables. Everybody say closed syllable? Closed. Awesome. Which means that all of those vowels would make their short sound. So my name would be Nick All As. Put all that together, my name would be Nick All As. Nice. His name would be Mick. That AE, it looks weird, but it actually has a rule because English may be complicated, but it's never stupid. There's always a rule, right? So that AE makes the E sound like in Caesar dressing or Caesar salad. I don't know why I'm hungry right now. But so if his name was Mick Eel, his name would be. Okay. Our names also, though, have a mixture of open syllables. Say open syllable. Which means the vowel makes its long name. So if all of my syllables were open, my name would be Nicolas. Put it together. Awesome. If all of his were long, he would be Michael. Put it together. Is that your name? No. We're getting closer. We're getting closer, though, right? So what's actually going on inside of here is that my name starts with a closed syllable, which would be Nick. All as the Nick is right on mine. We're good so far. Is Michael's also a closed syllable? No. His is my. What would it be? What would it be? Keel. It would be my keel, right? Now, the last thing, my name is not Nicolas. Even the last part is wrong. Is your name Michael? No, my elementary people know where we're headed because the last thing we had to think about in English is the schwa. Everybody say schwa. Yeah. So schwa is that unstressed syllable that just makes this funky little your mouth drop sound. So my name is actually what? Nicholas, and his name is actually Michael Hunnicky. Nice. Give him a hand.
All right, so what we're going to look at now is the impact that grammar and commas and punctuation have on a text and teaching kids to just pay attention to those and how it impacts the meaning. So we're going to look at why structure and syntax matters. So for the next slide, we're going to read it all together, pausing at the commas. 1, 2, 3. We are going to learn to cut and paste, kids. Awesome. Okay, so that's what we're going to do. So I'm going to read the next slide by myself. We are going to learn to cut and paste, kids. Oh, no. That's problematic. So, next slide, we're going to read together. I like cooking, my family, and my pets. Oh, that's cute. Okay, next one I'll do. I like cooking, my family, and my pets. Again, disturbing. So, commas, they save lives, but we also have to teach the kids to pay attention to them because it impacts the meaning of what the author's trying to say.
Of all the teachers I might make mad, it is not going to be Miss Hobby. I'm just saying. So punctuation can make a difference, but sometimes it gets even more complicated than that because the context can determine the way that we read something. For instance, this is a very basic sentence. Y'all read that sentence for me. Y'all all know how to read. Awesome. I'm going to need you to find a partner for this next activity. So really quickly, turn to the person beside you. Say hey. Lock eyes. Awesome. Beautiful. Everybody knows who they're going to talk to? Beautiful. So listen to me for this first line. If I stress that first word, I didn't make butter for him because I don't work for nobody. He made butter for himself. I didn't make butter for him. Even though he knew I wasn't going to, he tried to convince me to anyway. But I did not. For the next one, I want you to see it with your eyes, but then partner 1, say it to partner 2 with the bold word stressed. Then how did he get butter? Because you know he didn't make it for himself. All right, y'all switch this time. Partner 2, read the next sentence. Because butter takes forever. However, oh wait. Butter takes forever because you have to do what to it? Sure. Nice. Good through line. Beautiful. Let's all do the last 2 together. I didn't make butter for him. Made it himself. Last one. I didn't make butter for him. I made it for me, but then he stole it.
So now we're going to be looking at vocabulary, and again, that's just the meaning of words. So if we're doing this, like, I would just tell them, oh, colony, that's a noun. It's just a territory area that is under control of another country that's typically far away. But the thing with vocabulary is we want to teach them words that have multiple forms. So when I teach colony, I don't just do colony. They now have the knowledge to know what colonizing means. Colonization. What's this word? Decolonize. How about that one? Keep going. Colonialism. And one more. So we are giving them the breadth. Can everybody do? Breadth. Not depth. We want what? Breadth. Very good. We want to give them lots. And then last was our background knowledge. And again, we like to dress up here. Toiling away. So because we give kids background knowledge, when we are reading about colonial America, which is kind of, They are able to now attach meaning to it. It's not just, okay, I'm going to read about it. No, they now know what they are reading, why they are reading it. They understand it. So even just looking at these pictures, you probably already have some background knowledge based on what we've done up here. Any words that we've talked about look familiar? Yeah. Maybe another one? Butter, yeah. Nice.
So we hope you've seen the way that the different strands of the rope all tie together to build knowledge for students and help them access text. The great thing about the rope is that it all comes together really nice and tightly and can't really be unwound once it's tied together. However, one of the drawbacks of the rope is that it can make it look like the entire thing is in place, when in fact there might be a weak strand that's hiding just beneath the surface.
So this summer I was able to work with students, and one particular kid that I have in mind, the parent came to me and they asked me if I could enrich their child. And I said, you know, I have some assessments I'd love to do first just to see what they need. So I gave them some assessments on phonological awareness, on their decoding, their spelling, and when I put the Dibbles oral reading fluency in front of them, the child looked at the page and asked me where were the pictures. And so this parent was under the impression that their child was ready to go to the next grade level, advanced or on grade level, because they had been given a letter at the end of the school year. And so they were under this impression that their kid could do something when in fact they were many years below grade level. They had multiple gaps. They could not attain to the words. They didn't know what to do when there weren't pictures. They were relying on predictive text. And so it was just really empowering as a teacher to have the tools to be able to find out what this kid needed and then be able to move them to become a more successful reader. And just like how this rope is all entwined and things are not taught one at a time but all together, we are not remiss in knowing that if these kids didn't come to us from second grade, our second grade teachers are incredible, laying that foundation, and first grade and kindergarten, then they would not have made the gains that they made this year. That it is just like this is all intertwined, the work we do together is intertwined as well to help these kids become the successful readers we need them to be successful in life.
Well, I'm going to ask you to come up here real quick. I'm going to come back to the slide, but I just can't resist because it's like awesome. Can you go back 2 slides so we can look at the butter churning picture? One more. So, I mean, Jamie was pregnant.
I think it enhanced the outfit, really.
I mean, the kids were like, I got the most amazing teacher ever. She's totally in character. But I just want to one more time acknowledge them. Blaze Bowen, Jamie Julian, Kelly Hobby, Nick, thank you. And before they walk off stage, I want to say this because I think Kelly said it so appropriately at the end. And one more time, like 47-point gain on mean scale score is not luck. That's learning. That's science. That's intentionality. It's not chance. It's direct, systemic, and explicit instruction in all those ways that you saw. And you said something, Kelly, at the end that I just want to acknowledge. It's all intertwined. When we fix this, birth through age 8, in ways, as I've shown you already, you are, it is so intertwined, it will change our classrooms for the rest of Marietta City Schools on into middle and high school. It's intertwined. Thank you all so much for sharing your talent with us. And I just want to put up one more time Scarborough's rope. And I want to acknowledge that this work is complicated. Middle and high school, let me say to you very directly. I'm going to talk in a moment about how are we supporting learners in middle and high school, but I also want you to know the work that is happening, birth to age 8, the change that is occurring in 3rd grade is significant. It's intertwined. And our ability, as you look at this, to go from word recognition, churn, to making meaning from language, leads us to skilled readers. That changes everything across every interaction with children. It's complicated, but you are doing the work, quite candidly, in my humble opinion, 5 times better than everybody else in the state. And I want to acknowledge that with this work, and I kind of teased you with this earlier, but I want to come back to it, so many of you, and I think one of Kelly mentioned it briefly, so many of you were so busy this summer. You gave up time in summer school. You gave up time tutoring kids at the end of the spring. You gave up time, and you gave your time to Orton Gillingham training, dyslexia training, reading endorsements. How many of you in some form or fashion were involved either last spring or this summer in extra hours so therefore you could get further credentialed dyslexia, tutoring, summer school? Where are the hands? Any grade level. Thank you all. I appreciate that sincerely. I told you earlier that I asked the kids, like even though we had all these gains in our classrooms and things were incredible, that there were times you got mad, and then I asked them what you did when you got mad. I also asked them, because I know so many of you were working during the summer, I asked them, hey, what do you think your teacher does during the summer? And I'm telling you, the person who they say cowgirl, you better tell me who you are at the end of this, okay? So again, if you're nervous, you should be, but for all of those who hustled over the summer and for those who rested, here's what the kids thought you were doing for the last 8 weeks.
They go home.
I don't know. I've never thought of that.
Kind of don't know.
Does something like you litty.
She likes to go on girls' trips.
Probably go to sleep.
I bet you she goes to Hawaii because we're a lot.
Nap.
Goes to country parties. Yeah, like a cowgirl.
He just chills out.
Nothing. Just cleaning up her house because she's 50 something years old.
Go to beach and go like, woohoo, and jump in the pool. I think they take some rests and watch a movie, Mary Poppins.
Okay.
Pokemon!
Yeah.
She might go to the beach because it's summer break.
I think they go shopping on like one of those teacher Target sprees.
Grading papers and sleeping in because, you know, they have to wake up early. She just lays down and dead sleep.
Dance moms. They watch dance moms. They watch dance moms.
Yes.
Does anybody want to admit to being the cowgirl? Oh, your friends are calling you out. I love it, girl. Squeeze that kid when you see him. So I mentioned this far, and again, to bring you through with me, because I now want to look ahead to this year. Part 1 was acknowledging that literacy matters across our entire district. And what we do in elementary and pre-K sets up for success in middle and high school when we want kids to reach their fullest potential. And we can use grade level as a benchmark because we know that changes outcomes for grades and attendance and success and lifetime income and lifetime opportunity. And we looked at the numbers to see how that's been moving over the last year across MAP and Milestone. You got to see a chance for a moment about as we immerse ourselves in the science of reading, what does that look like? As a brief example, as kids learn to decode, as kids learn to attach meaning to words, and as kids learn to become skilled readers as they move through our district. And what I want to do now is share with you what does this coming year look like as we think about the additional support that we want to lean into our classrooms. And really, how is Marietta writing the book on literacy? First, this past year, as I told you, in January, our board approved a $7 million investment to provide 40 reading specialists in grades 1 through 5. The idea is, and I want everyone to understand this pre-K through 12th grade, we lean in pre-K through our Emily Limbeck Early Learning Center and through our partner of networks, 20-plus pre-Ks all throughout the city of Marietta, so therefore all the kids that are coming to kindergarten are kindergarten ready. In kindergarten, we're teaching our kids in 1st through 5th grade, we are leaning in up to 40 additional teachers who can be there to provide direct, explicit, and systematic reading instruction to kids. And let me tell you what that looks like in classrooms. That is a 1 to 10 ratio and a commitment to a In most cases, a 90-minute reading block 5 days a week. But let me one more time frame this, elementary educators, because I want you to understand the investment that this district and this board specifically made to change outcomes and to write the book on literacy. Imagine for a moment when we push in up to 40 reading specialists across all of our elementary classrooms, grades 1 through 5, and these reading specialists have the opportunity to work with kids who are below grade level. What does that do to every other classroom during the reading block? We just took all the classroom ratios across all classes in grades 1 through 5, and during reading, we just dropped them. It's a simple math problem. Here's why, and here's what our board values. Our board believes that when we pour into you, as you saw with Blaze and Kelly and Jamie and Nick, but as we lean into you and the pedagogy and the research, and we empower you to do the work that you can and will do, we've got to set you up for success. Can you do more in a class, in a reading block for 90 minutes, 5 days a week at 1 to 10 than you can 1 to 20? Absolutely. I'm going to say it another way. Find me another public school district anywhere that has a reading block of 1 to 10, 90 minutes a day, with the most credentialed reading experts anywhere in the country. That's you. And that's the journey we've been on for the last 2 years. But I want you to know the additional reading specialists across all grades 1 through 5, the additional time, 90 minutes, across most of our schools, the opportunity for 1 to 10 for kids reading below grade level. And I say this with the greatest degree of optimism and hope. The success you had last year that I showed you when we opened, can you imagine what it's going to look like next year? Can you imagine middle school? What those kids are going to look like when they come to your classrooms? I can tell you this, my 5th grader reads totally different than my 2nd grader. My 5th grader did not go through the pedagogy that you saw on stage. My 2nd grader will be in a classroom during a reading block where the ratios are dropped and the time is increased. It's intertwined and it changes everything about classrooms pre-K through 12th grade in Marietta. I want to give you one more example before I call some friends up on stage about the power and the investment of what has happened. And many of you know this past year in 3rd grade, when we got past first semester, we started recognizing, we knew there were kids that were not reading on grade level. And we initiated an after-school program where we offered kids tutoring, elementary teachers. How many of you were involved in that? From January to March, some of you went into April and May. But I want all of you to understand this for a moment because I think it speaks to the power of kids and families. Let me walk you through this. In January, there were 314 kids across our 8 elementary schools who were not reading on grade level in 3rd grade. 314. We reached out to those families and we said, hey, from January to March, would you be interested in coming to school? In staying after school for an extra hour and a half, 3 days a week? That was an additional 4.5 hours of reading instruction a week. 314 kids were eligible. Folks, 93% of the kids registered. I remember middle school and high school. I remember when I was a high school assistant principal trying to plan after-school tutoring. If I had 314 kids who were eligible, if I even had 20% show up, I'd throw a party and jump in a lake. We had 92% of the families say, I want my kid to stay for an extra 4.5 hours a week from January throughout the spring to get extra reading help. And what's equally as important to me, 89% of those who registered showed up. You know what that tells me? Families want the help. And the kids desperately want you. That's what it tells me. And I want you all to know is that whether it's in our elementary grades, again, intertwined and changing the outcomes for middle and high school, in our elementary grades, not only do we have the most skilled teachers doing the right pedagogy, but now we will have additional reading experts leaning in, reducing class size, increasing the amount of contact time, and we'll do the same thing again. Why? Because the families and the kids need and want you. and the power of this and how it can continue to change outcomes, I'm so optimistic for the book you will continue to write. And I want to call forward some friends of mine, and I want to ask them to come up on stage. Would you join me in welcoming some of our community partners in this work? So, and again, I frame this for you this way, and I thank you all so sincerely for joining me. I'm going to introduce them and explain their role, but whether it's reading specialists, whether it's teacher-student ratios, whether it's after-school program and families who desperately want the help, or whether it's our community partners in this work, these people stand on stage before you representing an entire ecosystem that is working to change literacy and outcomes pre-K through 12th grade in our district. And I want to just acknowledge some people by name and acknowledge what they do. Shana Ross is here from the Quality Care for Children. Shana works with not only our Early Learning Center, but also those throughout Marietta. So Shana, thank you for being here. Ken Zeff is here next. Ken works with Learn for Life. And imagine for a moment every Metro Atlanta superintendent, every Metro Atlanta college president, and all the major philanthropic partners all in a room together working on literacy, and we're talking about your work. So Ken, thanks for making that possible. We appreciate it. Irene Barton is here from the Cobb Collaborative. They have... Irene and her team worked to really engage families. They were part of hosting the fair we had this past weekend. So thank you, Irene, for everything that you do. A man who needs no introduction to Marietta, but certainly I will honor him, City Councilman Johnny Walker. Johnny, obviously the city of Marietta has been an incredible partner, and that's what's so exciting. Not only are you changing the narrative in classrooms, but they're changing the narrative in our community. Also want to offer next, and many of you know this gentleman, Justin Browning. Justin has been our wingman in all this work around science of reading. And how many of you have had Justin in your classroom or been in a room with him at some point? Thank you, Justin. We're honored to have you. Corey Kane comes with us from the United Way. Corey is not only a Marietta mom, but also helps with our Literacy and Justice for All partnership with her role at the United Way. So, Corey, we are grateful for the many hats you wear in this community, so thank you. And Corey works right alongside Jenny Morgan. Jenny is here from the Whitehead Foundation, and the Whitehead Foundation has been so instrumental in supporting Marietta and this entire community in this work, so thank you, Jenny. We appreciate you greatly. And then I told you, and again, I want you to understand the significance of it. I could stand up here and put Nick and 3 AL Burst teachers all night and all day. But show me another school district that also includes all these partners, and the next ones are equally as important because it starts long before pre-K. And that is our partners from Wellstar. I want to acknowledge Lisa, Jessica, Meredith, and Tracy. And these ladies have been so... Imagine if we can start with phonemic awareness for children and supporting families with what they should be doing with their kid at birth. Quite candidly, prenatal services. And that's where we're so grateful for Wellstar, but also for this entire group of people. I want you to stand up here, I want you to look up here rather, see our other partners that are represented, and know there is an entire community at your back, pushing and cheering and supporting you in this most important work. So I say to each of you, thank you all so very much for joining us, and we appreciate it greatly. So I want to touch on some things as we bring this to a close in a few minutes. I shared with you 14, 15, 16% gains across students with disabilities, our black, our white, our economically disadvantaged. But if you went back to that slide earlier, what I didn't put was the gains of our Hispanic and our English learners in 3rd grade. And I'm going to frame this for you, and then I'm going to walk you through middle and high school. Yes, we had gains across every subgroup. We had gains, again, of 14, 15, 16%. But when you look at our Hispanic and our English learners, we did not have gains of 14, 15, and 16% in 3rd grade. And that has implications for 4th, 5th, 6th, middle school, high school. And I want to share this with you because what we have learned is that we not only have things to replicate where we were incredibly successful, but we also have things that we have to address. The milestones in Hispanic and English learners, that came as a direct result. While they showed exceptional reading gains, they did not show the writing gains. And that's really the next phase of this work. Am I proud that we accomplished every subgroup in showing growth? Absolutely. Am I concerned about my babies here? Absolutely. And that gets into year 3 of the science of reading, where we go from decoding, language comprehension, to writing. In elementary, you will see this fundamental shift as we continue to work forward with science of reading and the pedagogy around making sure that we're helping all kids write, because we are seeing our Hispanic and EL kids continue to lag behind. But let me take you next to what it looks like for MSGA and MMS. And I hope if you've given me the grace, you understand how this is intertwined. And the first part of this conversation was really helping you understand how the kids that are coming to you are fundamentally being taught differently. And their outcomes are statistically significant. But let me tell you this. We got kids who are sitting at MSGA and MMS who didn't have the science of reading. And let me share you those scores. It's sobering, isn't it? If we look at the milestones for 6th grade reading this past spring, MSGA, you will welcome 40% of the kids not reading on grade level. Do you see why the work matters so much? And why the work is bigger than you? Look at 7th grade, same exact number. 40% of the 7th graders. And this is not about the finger pointing. This is about acknowledging that we had to do something critically different in our pre-K through 5 classrooms. That you saw demonstrated up here that was not chance, but it was systemic, direct, and explicit instruction. Because when we do that right, we can decrease the number of kids not reading on grade level by 12, 13, 14, 50%, in some subgroups even more. In 8th grade, we see slightly better, 27%. Because I showed you the Hispanic and EL numbers, can I just tell you that now? If I look at a student in middle grades who's Hispanic, and I look specifically, because those are the aggregate numbers, that's every kid, but if I look at a child that's Hispanic or an EL, our Hispanics are around 70% not reading on grade level. Our ELs, 95% not reading on grade level. Now, in some ways, we expect some dynamics because some of those kids might be new to the country, but I would tell you, hey, middle and high school, we got work to do here. Because these kids are not only not reaching their fullest potential, but they're not even on grade level. So looking ahead, what does that look like? 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, let me be very direct with you, and your principals know this and many staff do too. We have initiated a new EL sheltered model, an English learner sheltered model for students who are served through ESOL who require more intensive intervention in 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. We are also pushing more reading support. I don't expect a middle school or high school math teacher to teach reading. I do expect you to have a literacy-rich classroom. Do you need to understand what direct and explicit and systematic instruction looks like? No. But we've got to make sure we are pushing in middle and high school with the exact same urgency that we are pushing in at elementary school. But let me take you to high school for a moment. The same number, American Lit, 10th and 11th grade kids. Irene Barron said in her board video, A kid comes through our district, they've got to be able to read. We can't send a child out in the world who can't read. High school. That's why I say it cuts across every classroom at the high school and the middle school. 31% of the kids who took the American Lit EOC this past spring aren't on grade level. So I want you to know that this is a district commitment. This is a district priority. This is something that all of us have to lean into. And I want to shift for a moment and talk to you all about not just literacy, but I want to talk to you about classrooms. And I'm going to talk to you for a second about what our classrooms look like. So thus far, we've talked about Scarborough's rope and science of reading and outcomes and milestones and MAP and partners and birth through age 8. Middle and high school, I want to talk to you for a moment. And this might be rippling in elementary, but let me talk to middle and high school for a second. I don't even want to know how many of you weren't able to stay off your phones this morning. But let's talk about our kids for a minute. 95% of the kids have access to a smartphone, of teens. Most recent numbers from 2022 are that they spend an average of 7+ hours per day on their phone. But that's not it. They also will acknowledge that they have a difficult time staying off social media. Let's go back for a minute. We talked about the importance of kids reading and writing. How cell phones impact classrooms in so many ways undermines the exact work we're doing in elementary school. Let me walk you through one more. If you look at the research, it says that teenagers and cell phones, there is a dopamine addiction. What does that mean? How many of you engage in something regularly that you just love because it gives you that natural high? It's going for a run, it's exercising, it's hugging your kids, it's whatever it is, but it's that natural dopamine. It's that natural high. We have kids and maybe adults, but let's talk about the kids for a minute because it's more comfortable. We have kids that are addicted to the likes. And we have kids who are addicted to seeing people respond to the comments on whatever platform they use, right? There's a dopamine addiction. There also is, and I have the same problem. I roll over in the morning and I look at my phone. Sometimes the wife's like, "What are you doing?" But folks, our kids are in habitual behaviors where they condition themselves. Maybe some of you do it at stoplights. Here's what worries me. We're going to have this conversation around direct, explicit, systematic instruction across literature, so therefore we are helping kids reach their fullest potential, and they're going to get into upper grades, and they are going to become more focused on their phone than they are on learning. Some of you have seen that documentary called Social Dilemma. Anybody in here? I remember when I watched that, Jen and I were sitting on the couch together, we watched it. I remember putting my phone down and said, "I don't ever want to touch it again." And then habitual behavior, I picked it up 5 minutes later. And I read this book over the summer called Stolen Focus. Stolen Focus is a book about how society is changing because of the addictions that adults have in particular, but we can talk about kids too. Let's talk about us for a second. How society is changing around behaviors around cell phones. I will say this, if we're not careful, classroom interactions are changing. But what this book talks about in Stolen Focus is that, and think about it for just a simple moment, you have the world's smartest people working around the clock to keep you addicted to their platform so therefore they can make money. It's not complicated. Listen, I have a hard time doing sit-ups at the gym if it's not obvious. I don't have always the best discipline. But here's what I know. No matter how strong my self-discipline is, it's not as strong or as smart as the entire team at Facebook and Google and everywhere else who is manipulating what I do on my phone every time I need the dopamine addiction and the habitual behavior. And you don't have to raise your hands if you don't want to. I'll say this. If I can't control it and you can't control it, what hope do we have for our teenagers? And it's interesting because I've just got 2- and 5-year-olds. I mean, I got 2nd and 5th graders. I got 7- and 10-year-olds. There's jokes there, but my kids might be watching, so I'm not going to say it. But I've got a 7- and 10-year-old. I'm not even in the cell phone world yet. And what worries me is that we think about how this is changing kids' interactions. I'm not living it yet as a parent. But here's what I know. I've got a friend of mine who sits in this room, a colleague of yours, who says, when my son graduated from high school, he would say, I'm going to talk with my friends, and they'd like talk on the phone, or they'd get together. That same person has a daughter who's in middle school who says, when she says, I'm talking with my friends, that is only through her thumbs on social media. And in that short window of time, the entire dynamic has changed. I'm going to say to all of you here, and we've been talking literacy and learning and decoding and Scarborough's rope and milestones and map. Let me say something unequivocally here and unapologetically to every middle and high school teacher in here. And if you need to apply to 5th grade, take this too. We will not have cell phones out and on in our classrooms. Why? And listen, I get it, right? Like, I get how I'm outdated. I get it all. But here's what I also know. Our 14 and 15-year-olds, our 11-year-olds, our 18-year-olds, they are getting sucked into something that takes away from everything you are trying to do to help them reach their fullest potential. We cannot have a literature-rich classroom, whether it's PE or pre-K, when they got their head buried in a phone. I'll tell you this. While I want you teaching bell to bell, and we give Chromebooks to everybody, so if you need technology, use that. But I'll also say this, if there's 5 minutes left at the end of class, because for some reason you don't need to teach bell to bell, which I'm fine with, I'm not judging, how about this? Why don't they talk to each other? So hear me for a minute. Middle and high school. I understand it's hard. I was a high school principal for 9 years. I stay as close to the buildings as possible because I never want to forget what it felt like to be a teacher, an assistant principal, or a principal. But I'm going to say to you this. Hear from me now on this stage today. We cannot invest everything that we've done as a community with all these partners and all these kids and all this growth and all this change and writing a book on literacy if we're going to get them into middle and high school classrooms and we're going to succumb to the people on the other end of the screen who've sucked the kids in and taken them away from the magic and the learning that you can create in your classrooms. Principals and APs, I expect you to be consistent. And if you need help, we'll help you. But teachers, going back to the finger pointing that had to do with literacy, let's do the finger pointing about phones. I cannot expect APs and principals to be consistent if you're not consistent in your classroom. Because for me, and again, we spent a time together setting up what's happening in pre-K, well actually birth all the way through 5th grade. Your babies who were part of that below grade level will have someone who is a reading expert from 1 to 10 at a ratio of 1 to 10. Engaging and learning. Let's set them up for success 6-12. And let's acknowledge that though society tells us something else, you're writing a book on literacy that the entire state is looking at. I want you to create a classroom in the exact same way with the exact same standards. So administrators, I expect you to be consistent. Teachers, I expect you to be consistent. And whatever we need to do, the research says kids have a fear of missing out. That kids have a fear of what am I going to miss as a result of social media. Can I tell you this? I want them to have a fear. I want them to have a FOMO of what they're going to miss as a result of your classroom. So, and the reason this matters so much to me and should matter so much to us is because when we lean in, we can help kids be the greatest version of themselves. When we lean in, both K-5 but also to my middle and to my high school teachers, when you create a dynamic where those kids are engaged in learning and it's literature rich, and we help them reach their fullest potential, they're engaging with you, we remove the distractions of cell phones and everything else, and together we make a commitment to be consistent. When that happens, you saw what happens when we had consistency relative to systemic, direct, and explicit reading instruction. When we have consistency across all of our classrooms for what it looks like and how they engage, then I will tell you we help kids be the best version of themselves. And I'll share with you a story briefly that I think speaks to this. This past year when we were doing graduation, the kids walk across the stage and they shake my hand, they shake the principal's hand, they shake the board's hands. I watched how many kids walked up on stage with their cell phone in their hand the entire time. They were getting their diploma and they were shaking the hands. They were the cell phone and diploma. And I'll also tell you how many times I saw kids who wouldn't look me in the eye and wouldn't shake my hand. So when you got 5 minutes, help them be the best version of themselves. Because when you do, you will see things in them they never saw in themselves. And if you don't believe me, I want to share with you some kids here at the high school who I believe, because of you, are the best version of themselves. They put one of the best high school productions I've ever seen anywhere on stage last spring. Join me in welcoming the cast of Matilda.
Never again will she get the best of me. Never again will she take away my freedom. And we won't forget the day we fought for the right to be a little bit naughty. Never again with a choky jaw slam. Never again will I be bullied, and never again will I doubt it when my mommy says I'm a miracle. Never again. Never again will we live behind bars. Never again will we know we are revolting children living in revolting times. We sing revolting songs, using revolting rhymes. We'll be revolting children till our revolting's done. And we'll have the trunch full bolting. We're revolting. Ah! We are revolting children living in revolting times. We sing revolting songs, using revolting rhymes. We'll be revolting children till our revolting's done. And we'll have the trunch full bolting. We're revolting. We'll become a screaming chorus. Take out your hooky stick and use it as a sword. Never again will we be ignored. We'll find out where the chalk is stored. Drawing pictures on the board. We're revolting. We can S-P-L how we like. If enough of us are wrong, wrong is right. Everyone N-O-R-T-Y. We're a little bit naughty, so we gotta stay inside the lines. Disobey at the same time. There's nothing that the Trunchbull can do. Take a hammer and a safety. Use it in case you can push us too far. With the dog going back now we R-E-V-O-L-T-I-N. Revolting time. We're S-I-N-G. Sword. U-S-I-N-G. Rhyme. We R-E-V-O-L-T-I-N-G. It is too late for you. We are revolting. We are revolting children living in revolting times. We sing revolting songs, using revolting rhymes. We'll be revolting children till our revolting's done. It is too late for you. We are revolting children living in revolting times. We sing revolting songs, we'll be revolting children till our revolting's done. It is too late for you. We are revolting.
All right, will you all line up just real quick? Can you all just come up on stage? So, just like our choir, and certainly just like ROTC, they were here this summer preparing for you. Truly, and I told them this, one of the most amazing shows I've ever seen on any high school stage anywhere. Great job. To this amazing cast, we've talked a lot about people who have been in our district, people who are new to our district. How many of you here went to elementary school here in Marietta? Anybody see your old teachers? Young teachers, not old teachers, young teachers. And then how many went to middle school here? And then how many, I know we got one of our scholars who's here, came here, Marietta High School. Trina? Oh, great, good too. There you go, Trina, down there. I want to say to all of you, thank you for sharing your talents. You are really an amazing way for us to reflect on what matters in this district. So thank you so much. We appreciate you. And as they head off, I want to acknowledge Holly Smith and Michelle Peck. They might be backstage, or they might be in the audience, but they are the co-producer of this, so thank you so much. Oh, there we go. All right, thank you all. So I just wanted for a moment, I don't think that would have happened in Holly's and Michelle's class if their head was down on a cell phone, right? So going back to, for a moment, the idea that we are doing something different here in Marietta that is bigger than ourselves. This idea that we are writing a book on literacy that changes outcomes for kids. The idea that we can take a child who may have a disability, a child who may be learning the language, a child who may be new to the country, a child who might be dyslexic, and we can give those kids a classroom that is special, different, and better, and we can give them a teacher who helps them move in ways they never thought possible. And what I want to do here as we come to the final minutes together is really share with you a bit more about stories that have been here in Marietta, of kids that are here now, of kids that have gone through in years past, to really highlight how important this work is. Because you are, in fact, writing the book on literacy for this state and for the entire country, something that is bigger than yourself, and you are changing the lives of kids. Let you hear it directly from them.
The process has completely changed. It's so different. How do you put into words how this has changed even?
Our old school in New Jersey, they just gave us the work, gave us the homework, and they will let kids pass, fail, anything.
Reading and comprehending a question, that was like more of my struggle. But then after like a while, like reading at home more, and like after we like detected the problem, it was like we started working on it.
That time I saw a difference in Jermaine. He lacked confidence with reading. When he get to school, it was a struggle. So me getting him tested, they found out that he was 2 years behind in reading. So I brought the attention to the school. The school was still giving me backlash, like, no, he's good, you know, he just has some disruption. Maybe you should just put him on medicine. Maybe you should just do this. And that was not my focus.
And like popcorn read, a lot of kids, they were like good at reading, but like I knew like maybe I'll mess up on a word or two, and I didn't want to like feel like, oh, I can't do this, I don't want to do it. So like sometimes I just wouldn't like want to read in front of the class, so it kind of made me feel like left out, because I knew other kids could do it, but it was like I was kind of struggling.
Jermaine, due to his situation, they did do an IEP for him, but the IEP from New Jersey was off of a medical condition. So when they transitioned him here, they retested him, and he still was behind 2 years.
Through like first and second, it was kind of hard because I didn't understand that many words, so I couldn't really read big books, but I could read like these small and tiny books.
Dyslexia is hereditary. When it came up with the next one and then the next one, we knew more and more what we were doing, but dyslexia shows itself in such different ways. But the flip side of dyslexia is amazing, and it's a gift, and he doesn't have a box. It's difficult to get inside of a brain and try to figure that out. But Marietta City has done such a great job of figuring out the science of reading. When they implemented the reading specialist, then they had him come in for several months after school with reading specialists, and she worked with him one-on-one, sometimes like two-on-one. That is where we saw the biggest growth. Everything changed for him. He became more confident. He was bringing home books. The teacher was always giving him another book. Try this book, see what this series works for you. Literacy and Justice for All came along, and it changed everything. By investing the money and bringing the specialist in, it changed the trajectory of my child's life.
One of the hardest things, or one of the, I guess, most concrete examples of me being different was that everybody else could go home to their parents and read with them. That was definitely something that I picked up on pretty quickly, was that everybody else could do that and I couldn't do that. So that was kind of just another obstacle that I had to overcome, just something that I had to do differently than everybody else. You know, going from school speaking nothing but English, learning everything in English, and then going back home, switching and doing everything in Spanish.
We moved here to Marietta, we didn't know anybody. This is completely another world, especially a different language, different culture, different everything.
I remember when Harry Potter was coming, we don't have the money for buy the books, but the teacher buy the books for them. I remember the happiness with them, when Mom, Miss Thomas give me the books. Everything that they did was for them very important.
They love to be here in Marietta.
I just found this yearbook from 2009, which I think is when my brothers were here at MCAA, so I'm going to see if I can... They're there.
For sure, we are very grateful with Marietta, the community, teachers, because Marietta opened a big doors for them to the world.
So one of my proudest accomplishments is getting a full ride to Notre Dame. And it's not easy to do when your parents don't really speak the language super well. But I was able to do it because of Marietta and because of everything that I learned at Marietta. Starting, of course, fundamentally with learning to read. And then from learning to read, growing a love for reading and growing a love for writing. Of course, it would have been impossible to do, but it also would have been a lot harder without, you know, having the support of an entire school system and all the teachers and all the people and all the other students there. So
when you get married, you're living for you and for your wife, right? And then when you have kids, you're living for them.
Marietta City Schools were more patient with me, more involved. They understood where I was coming from. They allowed me to be an advocate for my kid, and they honored my wishes as me advocating for my kids. So they allowed me to be the parent that I wanted to be for my kids, because I love them. And you know, we're not perfect as parents. And you know, failing as a parent is my fear, you know, so. Don't never let no one dictate what you need to do with your child. I believe the wealthy word is just of happiness, having peace, you know? In the next, 5-10 years, I just want them to be happy, healthy, peaceful, wealthy children, wealthy men.
Yeah, I have a bunch of confidence because I feel like I could get through a whole book in a certain amount of time. Because when I'm in the classroom, I know I can ask them for a little bit of help on a word or something like that.
Third grade reading has set him for success. Our family will forever be grateful to Marietta City Schools for pouring in the resources, the money, to give us the teachers and the administrators to make our children successful.
Thank you, Marietta City Schools. They will help me to like become better, to like even they'll like motivate me. They'll like give me more confidence. I appreciate that.
Marietta es especial, diferente y mejor.
And for that, we are special, different, and better.
Your stories are pretty amazing, aren't they? Can I introduce them to you? Join me in welcoming Neil Dean and his family. Jermaine, Jameer, and Jennifer, come on out. And Monica Leone. Come on out, Monica. Let's be seated if you would. I want to talk with them for a quick moment. Kelly said it was intertwined. I said it was bigger than yourself. We've said repeatedly it's not just about third grade. It's actually about helping somebody reach their fullest potential. And I just want to share with you something that isn't a mean scale score. It's not proficient distinguished. It's like a life and a family, if you would allow me. So Neil Dean, I bet you have a whole fan club here. Do you think that's the case? Your principal won't sit down. But Neil Dean and his mom, or his mom Beth, and Justin is here. Obviously, many of us know the Gillen family. And I remember that very fateful day when school was out, my wife and my kids and I were walking through the Marietta Square at the fountain, and we saw you all, and she stopped me, and Beth stopped me and said, "It's been the most amazing year. And can I tell you about my son?" Well, I said, "I know Neil Dean." Everybody knows Neil Dean, right? And Beth said, "He's got dyslexia, and yet it's been the most amazing year, and I just can't thank you enough." This young man right here, and I want you to see and feel everybody here today, Neil Dean. And I'm going to talk about each one of you here in a second, but this young man right here, because of what you did and because of what you did as a family, he started in the fall in third grade at a kindergarten level. He finished the year at a third grade level. I don't normally need security, Neil Dean, at these things, but I'm worried your teacher, Miss Hobby, is going to run on stage. Kindergarten in August of 2022, third grade in May of 23. What you do matters. And thank you, Justin and Beth, to each of you for the example you set. And Beth, you said something that as an educator, I think all of us need to hear one more time. And I'll share the video with you later. But she said, "My son is dyslexic, and he's got no box." We needed to hear that. And my friends here, Jermaine and Jameer, hey, middle school. I want to acknowledge them as well. And high school, these scholars are coming to you. They'll be ninth graders this coming year. And I think you all have a same fan section here. One more time. The middle school's in the back row. But I want to acknowledge each of them and then their mom, Jennifer, because what she said, too, was very profound. These gentlemen came to Marietta from New Jersey. See her later. And like, it isn't easy. It wasn't always easy. They started 8th grade, August of 22, at a 4th grade reading level. One more time. 8th grade, started 8th grade at a 4th grade reading level. They were the statistic I showed you earlier. Remember that 40, 40, and 27? They finished, Jennifer, mom, gentlemen, they finished 8th grade at a 10th grade reading level. That wasn't luck, that was learning, folks. And Jennifer said something that when I watched this video meant so much to me as a parent, not just an educator. As an educator, Beth made me reflect on the box. You know what Jennifer said? One of my greatest fears is failing as a parent. Jennifer, I want to say to you in front of this entire group here, there is nothing about you that is failing as a parent, and quite honestly, your boys are one of the greatest success stories we can have here. And then there's Monica. Monica knows I have been like, I was like, Monica, I'm so excited to see you. Let me tell you a little more about Monica and her family, Tomas and Sonia. So Monica and her family came here in 2006 from El Salvador. And Monica, I know you have a fan club here. Hang on, because I got to do it, because otherwise somebody's going to get mad at me, okay? She went to Hickory Hills. I know they love you. She went to MCAA. Who remembers Monica at MSGA and MMS? There you go. And high school staff, how many remember Monica Leone, like involved in everything? You know, Monica, lacrosse, cheerleading, student council, Model UN, like everything. I remember when I first met Monica as a freshman, when I first came here, and she had this like glow and this light to her. And I remember watching her go from freshman year to senior year, and I remember losing my mind when she told me that she had gotten a full ride to Notre Dame. And I know this entire district, and Monica, I've told you this before years ago, like my little girls would go to the football game and they would say, "Can we see Monica?" But I also want to acknowledge Monica is the example, both in her home and in your classroom, of a child who came, who did not speak the language, but learned to read and write, and didn't just reach grade level, but reached her fullest potential. Folks, Notre Dame. In full ride. But I want to acknowledge, just as we did with Beth and Justin and Jennifer, I want to acknowledge Tomas and Sonia. Beth talked about no box. Jennifer talked about the fear of failure. When I look at the Leone family, It's what I want for my girls. It's what I want for every kid in Marietta, to reach their fullest potential, whatever that is. But let me tell you theirs for a minute. So Monica, class of 2020, Notre Dame, full ride. Her two brothers, a brother graduated from Marietta, will go on to Berry College, an anesthesiologist assistant in Denver. Oh, I'm not done. There are more Leones. So the one brother who went to Berry College, the other brother who went to Notre Dame and now is in Chicago as an engineer. And a sister who went to Wake Forest, now a bank analyst for J.P. Morgan in New York City. So the Leone family, when I think about what reaching your fullest potential looks like, and I imagine the opportunities but also the struggles that you all had, when you think about your 4 children, they were not only academic success and scholars, but they were some of the most incredible role models to ever go through this district. And just as I did with Beth's no box and Jennifer's fear of failure, Tomas said something that I reflected on. And he said, when you get married, you live for you and your wife. When you have kids, you live for your kids. And I want you all to know that the work we do is for the kids. The work we do is for the success stories. And whether it's kindergarten through 3rd grade, whether it's 4th to 10th grade, or whether it's full ride, and a family wall that says Notre Dame, Berry, and Wake Forest. And before I have you slide out, and I promise you there's a bunch of people on the other side of the building that are going to want to hug you, I want you all to know this. We gave you these shirts intentionally. One, and do y'all know how much pressure there is in picking out the shirt? Like, one of you straight up, I mean, Katie Phillips was like, if it's good, I'll put it in the rotation. If it's not, I'm not going to. So these shirts are your gifts as we kick off the year. You don't have to tell me now if they're going to make the rotation. That's okay. But you know these are shirts that we only give to staff and really special people. I'm going to turn around and say this specifically to Neil, Dean, Jameer, but then I also want to say it to the Leone family. Gentlemen, Neil, Dean, Jameer, we gave you those shirts. The only other people at the high school that will be wearing those shirts are staff. The only other people at Ale Burris that will be wearing those shirts are the staff. And I bet you're going to have people ask you, where'd you get that? And I want you to tell them that I worked really hard. And that I was an inspiration. And that what I did mattered. And here's the thing. I know you're not going to say it, but here's what I want you to think to yourself. I want you all to know this. In front of 800 people, every time you wear that shirt, here's what I want you to think, because I know you won't say it. I want you to think this. I worked hard and I did right. You, gentlemen, are an inspiration to all of us. And every time you put on that shirt, I want you to think about all these people who are here who acknowledged how hard you worked and everything that you accomplished. Because you one day will be Monica. And I say to the parents, just know that every time you put that on, I want you to be as proud of your children as we are of them. And to the Leone family, you can wear that at Notre Dame. Listen, this girl this summer was, again, talk about the things that she does, right? She was studying abroad in France this past semester. She was in Hungary and Spain and Portugal. You can wear that with pride wherever you travel, girl, okay? And Monica, I want you to remember, my girls will never forget you. And I will tell you that everyone in here is proud of your family and is incredibly proud of you and your siblings. Ladies and gentlemen, one last time, would you join me in just saying thank you? I told you that this is about something bigger than yourself. We've been together this morning talking about the journey, the numbers. We've been together talking about the lives. We've been together talking about what we will do together in K-12. I leave this for all of you as we close now. What you do matters. And what you do is bigger than yourself. The work that you are doing here in Marietta not just changed lives for Neil Dean and for Jermaine and Jameer and for Monica in so many ways from years past, but it will change lives for every single child who sits in front of you this year. Know that this board, this community, this superintendent believes in you and what you mean to children. I wish you the absolute best here and know that every one of us is here for your success. To each of you, in the ways that you will change lives, thank you. Thank you for the way you will be somebody. Thank you for the way that you will make Marietta special, different, and better. And most of all, as we say goodbye, thank you for how you will do something that is bigger than yourself. Have a great year. I appreciate all of you. Thank you. Hey, Scott. Thanks for coming.
Shooting for